Hello everyone, welcome to another video. I'm Randy and this is a thread response. And it's a thread started by Jason at Spinz Vinyl, which it's a channel that I was not real familiar with, but I've seen several people post responses to this thread and went and looked at his channel, which he's got a ton of subscribers. It's very professional looking, unlike mine. Great editing and everything, and got an amazing collection and great rapport with the viewer. But anyway, he wanted us to show you could only have one album per decade to listen to for the rest of your life, which was kind of a unique idea. I was nominated by Rod, Happy Hippie the Vinyl Guy, and by Steve at All the World's a Stage, so I thought I better get on this. So part of the thread was to nominate 3 people to participate in this challenge, and I thought I'd do it now instead of at the end of the video, where they might not watch till the end of the video. But my first one would be Sam St. John. I guess Steve at All the World's a Stage was going to nominate him, but he's been a little under the weather. But in case you're able to do it, Sam, like to see the Best Brothers albums from each decade. Then Glenn Calloway from The Basement, I'm going to nominate him. I'm pretty sure I know what his 60s album is going to be. And then Brian at Embryonic Robot would be my third choice, and great with the 80s and 90s, so it'd be interesting to see what he picks. So those are my 3 nominations there, and I want to get started with the video. He used albums from the 30s and 40s that were recorded. The music was recorded in that era, but the albums didn't come out. The LP didn't start till 1948, and I'm going to do that as well to get some more music if this is all I'm going to be listening to for the rest of my life. And I changed it up a little bit. I decided I was only going to do blues, R&B, and soul, and so I guess that's what I'm going to listen to the rest of my life here. So I'm only choosing albums in those genres. So let's get started. So I decided to go way back so I'd have more music to listen to. So I'm starting with the 1920s. And this is the early queen of the blues, Bessie Smith. This is Any Woman's Blues. I think Columbia did like 4 different sets of these songs of hers. And I don't know if you can tell right there, but they were all recorded in the 20s. Just a great album, and that's how I'm going to start out. And how about the 30s? So in the 30s, I'm using Blind Willie McTell. So great that Bob Dylan even wrote a song about him. But this was, I think they had 4 compilations of his tunes too that were done by Third Man Records, the Jack White studio in Detroit. But these songs were all recorded in the 30s, as you can see right here. So yeah, Blind Willie McTell, not at Third Man Records, but they reissued these tunes. Blind Willie McTell, the great blues guitarist. All right, for the 40s, I'm going with Joe Liggins. This is Joe Liggins and his Honey Drippers, Darktown Strutters Ball, Early Jump Blues. There's Joe Liggins right there at the piano. Just great tunes from the 40s. It's my 40s. All right, from here on out, these albums were actually released in the year of the decade. And so first one I'm going to show is Little Willie John. And this is his album that came out in 1958 called Mr. Little Willie John. Of course, his biggest hit was Fever, which later Peggy Lee did. I think his Fever went to #1 on the R&B charts. But kind of a sad life, though. He ended up dying in prison for manslaughter, but he had some great tunes on here. Little Willie John. For the 1960s decade, I'm using this album from 1969, Jerry Butler, Ice on Ice. Of course, Jerry's one of my favorite voices. Moody Woman and What's the Use of Breaking Up were big hits on here. This is when he was working with Gamble and Huff, the producers out of Philadelphia, which was his second great era. His first great era is when he was working with Curtis Mayfield, did a lot of Curtis Mayfield songs on the VJ label and earlier. But yeah, great album. Ice on Ice, Jerry Butler. All right, for the 70s, I'm using this Gladys Knight and the Pips album called Imagination from 1973. This had the huge hit on it Midnight Train to Georgia, written by Jim Weatherly. I guess the original title of the song was Midnight Plane to Houston, but it's changed. I think it works better, Midnight Train to Georgia. Just fantastic tune and great album by Gladys Knight and the Pips. For the 80s decade, I'm going with Ted Hawkins, and this album came out in 1982. This was his debut. He was kind of found as a street musician on Venice Beach. Had a voice reminiscent of Sam Cooke, or a singing style reminiscent of Sam Cooke. But great album, Watch Your Step. And then the one that came right after this was great as well. Became better known in Europe. But yeah, great album, Watch Your Step from 1982. The 90s were hard to find a vinyl album, so I'm going to have to go with a CD on that one. And it's from 1993. Terry Evans and the album Blues for Thought. Terry Evans has one of my favorite songs on here. That's The Way Love Turned Out for Me, which Ry Cooder did a great version of that tune. Well, this one with Terry Evans' beautiful voice, and you get Ry Cooder on guitar, which is just a magnificent song. So Terry Evans, Blues for Thought, for my 90s. For the 2000s, I'm going with Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings. This is her album Naturally, which we had this in a CD exchange on Rich Strickler's channel, and it took me a while to really get into this album because I was a little, hesitant at first. I liked it, but I just didn't love it. And now I love it. It's really grown on me. This Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings Naturally album from 2005. Right? How about the 2010s? So I'm going with the neo soul of the Black Pumas. This is their album, self-titled album. Sounds like they just broke right out of the 60s. Just some great tunes. I guess they're great live. But the Black Pumas, this album came out in 2019, which leaves one left. So for the 2020s, I'm going with this album came out in 2021, and it's Gold Digger's Sound. Gold cover for Leon Bridges, and just some great soul funk. And so that's my completion. That's the albums I'm going to listen to for the rest of my life. Going to have some great R&B and soul and a little blues. So everyone take care.